Hi guys, this is Rudy for Best Your Investor. Today I put together a little presentation that's a little different to the usual ones, and I'm not going to be focusing or talking about Oxy specifically, but what I wanted to do is show you sort of the weighting of the different equities in my personal portfolio. Today is Wednesday, it is October the 7th, 2020, and I'm coming to you from Florida. So hello everyone, thanks for watching. So what happened is I received an email from Manu. So Manu wrote to me from, or Manu wrote to me from Germany. He says, I am 22 years old and I am new to the game or in the game of the financial world since March of 2017. So relatively new. And in my portfolio, there's a rather big position of Oxy. So Manu, the first thing that I want to say is you don't want to have a concentrated position of anything in your portfolio. It's okay to have a position in Oxy, but I am somewhat concerned, even though we don't know one another, that you say you have a rather big position of Oxy. Firstly, you should always only invest what you could possibly afford to lose. And secondly, you need to do a lot of homework before you get into any position, and especially try and avoid a concentrated position in any one particular stock. Then he asks me, he says, I would really appreciate to see a video with the allocation of your whole portfolio and not just the energy stocks. So I have touched on some of these before, especially financials, because I have a large position in financials. But I thought this is a good question for Manu, and there may be a lot of people who are relatively new to investing in general, and especially self-directed investing. So why don't I kind of show you sort of what the portfolio looks like from my vantage point. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the equity weighting by dollar. So in other words, how much dollars have I invested into particular equities? And I'm going to show you the weighting broken down in groups, because I have 20 equities that I hold. So, and these are equities that I am long in, which means I own the shares. So I'm not shorting this, I'm not day trading this, I actually hold these 20 equities long. So the first section in terms of financial weighting is financials, energy, and an ETF. So in terms of financials, I have my top 5 equities, which cover 3 different verticals. So right here at the bottom, it's a little bit small for you, but you could see TD, which is a bank, Oxy, which is obviously Occidental Petroleum, PPL, which is an integrated petrochemical company with pipelines predominantly as a major source of revenue. SLF is a Canadian financial institution called Sun Life, and VYM is kind of the odd one out there because it is an ETF. It's a high dividend paying ETF. It owns a lot of blue chip stocks in that portfolio, and it pays a dividend of, as of today, about 4.5%. So the second section, so I went the top 5, so this is number 6 through to 10, are a couple of stocks in the financials, pharma, energy, and telecom segments. And again, there's an odd one out, which is SPY. It's an ETF. I like SPY because it's heavily technology weighted, even though it is also somewhat risk mitigated or diversified in terms of holding other equities too, in addition to technology. SPY also owns, for example, in its top 10 equities like Johnson & Johnson, Berkshire Hathaway, Visa, I think from memory. So there's a couple of sort of non-tech stocks in SPY, but SPY is predominantly Apple, Facebook, Google, Amazon, etc. So these sort of top 6 to 10 for me. Again, right at the bottom is a little bit small for you, but they include Bank of Nova Scotia, which is a Canadian bank, Pfizer, Enbridge, which is an energy stock I talk about quite a lot in my other videos, SPY, which I just mentioned, and BCE, which is Bell Communications, which is a telecommunications company. If we go to number 11 through 15, so I'm 3/4 way through here, I hold a couple of REITs, industrials, and energy. So right here at the bottom again, it's a little bit small for you to see, but you can sort of see the yellow portion is a REIT called HR.UN. 3M is my industrial here. I also have Total, which is an energy stock, General Electric, which is obviously an industrial as well, and another REIT, AGNC. I like the REITs, so these two guys together here are both REITs. Both of them are currently paying me high dividends. In the case of AGNC, it's well over 10%, and they haven't cut the dividend since the market crash in March. And in the case of HR.UN, it's paying me a current dividend of about 6.5% on an annualized basis. And then the last group of five, so my top 16 to 20, includes industrials, financials, and telecom. And the stocks that I hold here are stocks that you might be familiar with because they're well-known companies. One of them is ICANN, the other one is AllianceBernstein, Wells Fargo is a bank, Verizon is another telecommunications company, and this little green slither over here are the Occidental warrants that I own in my portfolio. So we can also weight the portfolio by vertical as opposed to by dollar. So the first 4 slides I showed you is how much money I've invested in each of these different equities and what the weighting was in terms of the dollar investment. What I'm going to show you now is the actual weighting by vertical. My largest weighting by vertical, not by a long shot, but quite large, larger than the number 2, are financials. So in my financial portfolio, I own a number of heavyweights, which is a mix of Canadian and US banks or financial stocks. The big yellow section here and right through these 3 top holdings here are banks. The yellow one is TD Bank. I like TD Bank in terms of where it's currently trading. TD stands for Toronto Dominion, which is a Canadian bank, but Toronto Dominion or TD has more branches in the United States than what it has in Canada. So as a Canadian entity, it actually earns a lot of money in US dollars, which also gives it a premium revenue uptick because the Canadian dollar is currently trading at about $1.25. No, sorry, $1.30 something against the US dollar. So you have to pay 1 Canadian dollar 32 cents for 1 US dollar. So the revenue that they earn in US dollars certainly helps them boost their earnings and revenue from a Canadian perspective. The second one, the sort of pinkish colored one, is Sun Life Financial, which is again a financial institution out of Canada. And the third one as well, which is the Bank of Nova Scotia, BNS, another Canadian bank. These 3 financials pay me huge dividends. They are well over 4% or above on an annualized basis, and I have large positions in all 3 of them. The other one, the little light blue one here, is AllianceBernstein. That pays me, that's an American investment house and pays me a dividend of well over 10% at today's price. The next weighting I have by vertical is probably one that you're more familiar with because I talk about it often. It includes my favorite and yours, which is Occidental Petroleum. So again, if you look at these 3 big ones over here, Oxy is a stock that I originally got into because there were whispers that they were bidding to buy Anadarko. Times were good. WTI was trading sort of in a range of about $50 to $60 a barrel, and Occidental was almost printing money at that kind of price. They were certainly loaded, and then things went awry. So firstly, they took out an expensive loan from Berkshire Hathaway at an 8% coupon rate in order to acquire Anadarko successfully, which closed in August of 2019. And they used to pay me quite a nice big dividend, and that dividend obviously has now kind of dissipated and disappeared into thin air. I have added to my Occidental position since the crash, and my cost basis is now significantly lower than what it was when I originally got into Occidental much more than 1 year ago today. Pembina and Enbridge I have owned for a long time. These 2 stocks are heavy dividend payers for me. I have done well with them. They are both undervalued right now. Enbridge pays me a dividend of about 8% annually, and Pembina pays me a dividend of about 8%, and they pay that dividend monthly. So, it's a heavy dividend stock that I own. Also, something that I need to just add in here for the benefit of disclosure, you know, when you see my picture on the screen, you obviously realize I'm an old guy. And Manu, the email that I referenced at the start, was he said he was 22 years old. So Manu is young enough to be my son. And you know, when you are at a certain age, you have a different priority compared to someone who's 22. And I like the fixed income of the dividends that I receive, and that's one of the reasons why banks and energy are my number 2 and number 1 weightings, respectively, in terms of industry verticals. I'm not going to go through all of them, but this is my weighting for number 3. So in my number 3 weighting by vertical, I own a couple of ETFs. These ETFs are VYM and SPY. I own them for different reasons. VYM is blue chip stocks that pay a large dividend, and SPY is heavily weighted towards technology. So you would have seen a gap in my portfolio in terms of industry vertical based on weighting as it relates to technology stocks, which of course have been high flying. I used to own technology stocks prior to the crash. I fortunately managed to get out using trailing stops out of those technology stock positions before we crashed in March of this year. And then slowly, as the market crashed, I started investing in SPY. SPY pays me a little dividend, but it's heavily technology weighted, so it's been good for me in terms of my investment portfolio. And it's certainly one of my best performing stocks, even though it's an ETF. An ETF, in case you don't know, is an exchange traded fund, which is a fund made up of a variety of different equities. So in the case of SPY, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, SPY's top 10 holdings include companies like Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, but it also has a bit of risk balancing or mitigation for me because it owns Berkshire Hathaway, Visa, Johnson & Johnson, etc. So that's all included in its top 10. This is my third highest weighting by vertical, which is actually a little bit non-descriptive because it's not a particular vertical. It's ETFs that own a whole variety of different equities. And the last one I'm going to show you here, or maybe the second last one I'm going to show you here, is industrial conglomerates. I have 3 holdings here: 3M, General Electric, and ICANN. 3M and General Electric are undervalued for different reasons. General Electric is not a good stock. I probably would be hesitant to get into General Electric now, but I owned it before the market crash. ICANN is one I've actually been adding to on a monthly basis. Also pays a huge dividend. In fact, it's got a juicy dividend of about 15%. And 3M is a stock that I just covered recently in a video 2 days ago or so. One more. You might have thought that I was a little bit underweight on pharma. My fifth largest weighting by vertical is just one stock, which is a pharmaceutical stock, which is Pfizer. Pfizer also pays me a comfortable, nice, juicy dividend of about probably 4.5% today. I haven't looked at the stock price today for Pfizer, but it's the only pharmaceutical equity that I own, which is pure pharma. The other ones are embedded in the ETFs like VYM and SPY. And I just mentioned a minute ago that SPY, for example, includes Johnson & Johnson. So I have more pharma than just Pfizer, but Pfizer is one of my very large positions in terms of weighting. So guys, that's a wrap in terms of this presentation. I wanted to show you sort of what my entire portfolio looks like. At my age, I need to risk mitigate and make sure that I have a nice balanced portfolio. This is my sort of wagon wheel pie chart, to be more specific, of my weighted portfolio of 20 equities. And then as a final comment, I will just add that I'm showing you my equities, but I also have other investments, and one of those investments, for example, is cash. If I had to include cash as a position in my equity weighting, the wagon wheel or pie chart will look a little different. Right now, I hold a lot of cash, and the reason why I hold a lot of cash is because the market is very volatile, and I'm somewhat risk averse at my age in terms of just jumping into stocks, boots, and all. So even when you look at the video that I spend probably most of my time on, because that's what most of you are commenting on and chatting with me about, which is Occidental, it's just this one slice in my equity portfolio. So I don't have the ability to say, like Manu at the start of this presentation, I'm 22 years old and I can hold these stocks for 40 years. So I need to be a little bit more careful, and that's the reason why my pie chart looks the way it does. Anyway, I hope this is interesting for you. I hope that it helped you a little bit in terms of how you might position your own equity portfolio. And on that note, this is Rudy for Bester Investor signing off, saying keep well, stay safe, and I'll be back soon with another video. Hope you enjoyed this one. See you soon. Bye-bye.